Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, the space for entrepreneurs on a quest for unwavering certainty and purpose. I'm your host, Lauren, and each episode is a compass guiding you through authentic conversations, unraveling the mysteries of your human design chart, and offering tools from the remarkable guest. Join me as we embark on a journey to manifest greatness and create a life aligned with our deepest purpose. This is the space where misfits find their enlightenment. Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren, and in today's episode, I have a very dear friend. Her name is Kerry. She is a psychic medium and spiritual mentor. Welcome, Kerry. I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Hi, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. I know this has been a while for us to plan this. And, we always say when it works out, it works out. So I'm super excited to have a conversation with you today. So tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of what led you to the journey that you are on right now.
Great question. So I'm a psychic medium and spiritual mentor. Wear many hats, and I love nothing more than really guiding and empowering women to come into their truth, to lean into their intuition and develop their gifts and have the confidence to really create a life and a business that they are just craving inside to create. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. And I live in Scotland. I was born in Scotland, and before I got to where I am now, I've had I'm a manifesting generator. Let me just reference that. So I've had quite a colorful past to get to here. So traditionally I grew up in a family of professional dancers and musicians. So my dad and my brother are like full-time musicians, grandparents sing, my mom dances, and so I've had a really creative upbringing. And so my journey started out in the creative arts, and I went to music school and was doing music professionally until about my mid-20s. And then I had a spiritual awakening when my grandfather passed, saw his spirit leave his body, and it kind of just opened up, a lot of questions about, who I am, why I'm here, and, we all go down that journey. So I worked in travel for a long time. I was doing music. I traveled in the Med. I worked on a cruise ship. So I've kind of been around. I've been in a lot of sales background jobs as well, and done a lot of traveling, met a lot of people. So I really have had the experience of a lot of different cultures and experiences and how people relate to one another. So that's how it started. And then when I had the spiritual awakening, it kind of forced me, because of what I witnessed for the first time, seeing spirit, especially with a grandfather, a loved one. And it really drew me into, opened up all my clairaudience, and I was having some freaky experiences. And it just led me down the path of there's more to life than what we think in this reality. And yeah, over a decade now, here I am. I'm 40 now. That was around 21 to 25. And so that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah, I love that. I personally know more of your story, but I personally love it and how intuitive you are and how much you know about just everything, like astrology or if it's human design. And I know that we talked about this too, but it's just the detail. I'm like, you have to have some gate of detail or something in
Yeah,
your
I think I do. I can't remember exactly, but there's something in there. I think I have like one gate, and is that the Ashna? I think it's the Ashna, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
There's definitely, I think I'm a 1-3 profile as well. So I have a really investigative nature, and my strong foundation. I need to have the knowledge and whatever I'm passionate about or drawn to, and I won't feel safe and comfortable and confident enough until I have enough. But I struggle with that. For anyone listening, I struggled since I was a young girl, with, because I had the investigative nature and I was always naturally very intuitive. A lot of my environment wasn't tuned into that, and so I was kind of known as the know-it-all. And when you're a kid and someone calls you a know-it-all, you just take that away as such a really horrible, bad perception of, oh, what that means about you. But now I understand that it's actually a psychic clear, as clear knowing, and we should all be in tune with that, depending on what it is that we are navigating in life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I was to say thank you for sharing that too, because I've had similar experiences, and probably people that are listening also had similar experiences, that they just kind of have this knowing.
Yeah.
And mine is the same thing. Like, I might not know how I know, I just know, and I
Mm.
don't know how to explain it. Like, I can't
Yep.
tangibly put in words how I know. I just know. Like, I literally
You
will just
just
say, yeah,
know.
I know. Like, that's
Yes, it just
it.
comes out your mouth,
Yeah.
and it's like
Like,
it, you can't really explain it. I was doing a workshop the other day, and this was one of the things that came up about it was that, when you have that clear knowing or clear cognizance, as we would call it, psychically, it is just this strong knowing in your body. It's just there's no other way. There's no other. Your mind doesn't come into it. It doesn't take time to process. You just know, and when you trust it, it's usually right. And so this was coming up because it's where people struggle a lot, is to really trust that knowing, because we're so programmed to go straight to the mind and be like, well, the evidence isn't there, no one else is agreeing with me. you know
right. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's another thing, like, that human design plays a part of that, because if you understand your human design and you start to kind of like uncover it, I know it was for me, and I'm sure it is for you too, that um I was like, oh, like, this is, I always knew this, but then, the doubt came in, other people saying that they don't believe me. I
mm,
can't physically tangibly show you this. It's all
yeah.
energy. It's like, it's
Mm-hmm.
wild when people, I think I seen a meme the other week, and it's like, it's wild that people believe in astrology, but they won't believe in energy healing.
Yeah.
Won't believe in, you believe in Wi-Fi. You do
Yeah.
believe in it. Everybody does. But
Electricity.
then why won't you believe in energy healing? Or so it was something like
Yeah.
that. It was like, it's true, because you can't see
Mm.
Wi-Fi. You can't see internet connection. You can't see electricity.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can see, but you know it when it doesn't
You
work.
know it. That's true. That's true. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of it is because we've been programmed not to have wisdom and knowledge around energy, in our upbringing. It's something we kind of find in our own, or our path, or awakening, whatever. But we aren't taught as children truly. Yeah, we get biology, chemistry, and all those things, science at school, but we're not taught how energy works. And so the mind, the 3D version of the conscious mind, it can't connect the dots of how energy healing is exactly the same of plugging in your iPhone to the socket, and charging the battery. And they can't comprehend. And I think that's a whole other conversation that then goes into like Tesla and free energy and maybe another subject.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
No.
you know,
Yes. Yeah. So I do know one of your biggest gifts is helping people to develop their psychic gifts.
mm-hmm.
So, especially those that might feel like unsure or unblocked, like, how do you actually begin to help others develop these spirit? Well, they already have their psychic gifts,
Yeah,
but develop them.
that's a really, really good question. I've been doing this work for a long time and branched into like, mentoring the last couple of years, but especially the last year. And what I have really noticed, I've been in, the journey of holding space for ancestral healing with people for a long, long time. And I've found that now at this point with mentoring, um, addressing your trauma and ancestral patterns is the core foundation. Um, of this journey of learning to be in tune with yourself, because we all have intuition. Everybody in the planet, every animal has intuition, but we are not all set up to be fully dialed in to hear it, to feel it, to have the signs come in to confirm where you should go and all of that. But you have to learn to build the dial of discernment, as I call it. So, and that doesn't come just naturally to us because of the world we live in today and it's so fast and busy. And so, discernment, you strengthen your discernment by addressing your past. And I don't mean rehashing the past. I think once you've integrated a good chunk of things that had a lot of attachment, intensity of emotion in the past, once you integrate that, you can move on pretty much to an extent pretty well without having to keep going back. But building discernment comes through really looking at the core principles of what attachments to trauma, things you experienced that really psychologically and emotionally and physically messed you up in the past, where it's so to the point where you can't trust yourself. So addressing things like that through energy work. I also take people through a deep process where they're facing, their shadow, and there's a lot of different things ancestors will pop forward, so that it's giving them also an induction into the connection with spirit and loved ones in the spirit world, sometimes with guides. But discernment, really integrating, moving past the trauma, having a greater awareness is the core foundations of where we even start. And what starts to actually happen, people think, when you get into mediumship and psychic development and intuitive development, excuse me, intuitive development, people get so excited about it, right? It's like, oh, psychic stuff. I want to learn all this stuff. And it is exciting, but, you have to be able to ground it in. You have to know that it can't be floaty. There's a lot of do's and don'ts within, a parameter of what really is the right thing to do with it. And grounding the foundations and just help people to then realize that, oh wait, I've been doing this my whole life, but I've had so many things, I've been distracted, I've not trusted myself, I've not had reference points and evidence to help me actually want to believe in myself and trust these abilities. So usually you find everybody has access to all of this anyway, but if we're not addressing trauma, if we're not looking down the ancestral roots and look at, like, even if you don't have strong connections to your family that are currently living with you, or even passed on family, you can still connect into the energy and people will step forward. And it blows my mind every time. It blows people's minds every time, especially if you haven't had strong connections, because people come forward and will confirm things to them that's very accurate to what is happening in their life or why things have happened for them. And it's things around like your money challenges, right? There's a money story in the generational lines, relationships, betrayal, all these different things, the gifts and what we would term as the wounds or the shadows. So that's kind of the core thing where I start with people. And once they start to get into that space and feel safe to really go into that on a regular basis, you actually find that it's less about practicing, like your clears and to see properly, to hear properly. And it's just more about allowing the old layers of the false identity who you've never actually been to fall away. And then it's like your clear audience goes up. You can hear really clearly spirit and the guidance. You can feel it really strongly. You can know it. You can see it. You can sense it. And so yes, those practices, they are important to an extent, but you'll get to a point where you shouldn't have to need to do certain things to be able to be uh, a really good intuitive to make decisions for yourself and business. So a little long-winded, but I mean, I think I don't hear a lot of people talk about it from this perspective, and boundaries and all the things that come into play, but it's really about addressing a lot of the past so that then you kind of allow all this energetic debris to really naturally just fall away, because it all just sits in the field, right? It's all just sitting there and then it funnels into the body sometimes. And so once you can really address it and you move energy with your intention and do different practices, it just falls away. And what's left is the true you. So then you get to choose what you do with that next, you know?
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, there's a lot of good things that you said, but two things that you said too is you don't have to relive your past. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
if it's like past life or if it's an
Yeah.
ancestral thing, you, I actually had this experience, what was it, last week? I was doing like, look, I was in meditation and, I did have a session with,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that clears ancestral, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because my shoulder hurt, like it was like really
Uh,
bad. And I was like,
mm-hmm.
I kept having this vision, not judging my vision, but I had this vision of when I was 10, but not in this lifetime. It was a different lifetime
Mm.
that I was
Yeah.
in a cotton field and I must have been
Oh,
a
wow.
slave. And
Wow.
it was this girl, I was African American and
Wow.
I had this pale, like I had, the things that you wear, and I
Yeah.
had it on my shoulders and I couldn't put it down. It was just like I couldn't, I think I
Wow.
even tried to put it down and I just couldn't. But then I woke up and my shoulder kept hurting. And it was like a week of this. And I kept trying to like breathe into it, ask my body like what it is. And I realized it was connected to guilt and shame in
Mm.
my lineage that,
Wow.
and I'm talking my physical body, not today, but it hurt. And I was like,
Yeah.
when I did the session with her, she was like, just allow it. Like, what's going on? Like, breathe into it, like, talk to it.
Mm.
I was like, oh my God, it was this, but it connected to a past life that I cleared out for my sinuses because I used to get sinus.
Wow.
Like, I
Wow.
believe that you can,
people that are listening to this are obviously going to be like, what in the heck, but you can kind of look in your, like, I'm telling you, like, it's true what you're saying. Nobody talks about it. Like, sure, like people talk about trauma and what's happening to them. Well, you're not the first generation that's happened to. What about your mom? What about your grandma? What about, this? What about that? Obviously, when my grandmama was alive, she didn't tell me that stuff. Like now that she's passed over, yeah, sure, I could get, messages from her. Same thing with my dad's family. They were much more, don't talk about it. Finding out that my cousins went through the same thing I went through. And it's like their mom. And it's just like, this is generational. Like this is ancestral. Like this is part of, obviously our generation. Some of my cousins too are waking up to the fact that they're not going to pass it on to their kids. But, like my shoulder hurting had something to do with a past life. I mean, maybe it could have been logically, if I want to speak about it, maybe I slept wrong on my pillow. No, that's not right. Yeah. Like, I mean, it could be, but it's not. Maybe it's the way that my posture is, but it's like, it's not. It's like, if you actually, here's me. No, there's always a reason.
Yeah, but I think people are going to start to learn this more. Like we look at the world, we could look at human design, the next transition of the rising of the sleeping phoenix, right? And how everything's changing, and people are not getting even the medical help in the way that they've been addicted to, right? Let's just say addicted to, attached to, codependent to, without having to look deeper. Now we need to look deeper. Now we can't go to some of those resources. So it's forcing people to look at the subconscious mind, to look at the body, to look at the emotions. And it is generational. You can see it. The deeper you get into this journey of your own journey, and you work collectively maybe with people in it, you can see clearly also collectively, like we just had a huge, one of the biggest storms in the UK and Ireland that we've had in, I don't know, since the 90s. And in certain places it was, quite bad, destruction. But we had this thing where everybody that was in fear went straight back into bulk buying and taking all the toilet roll like COVID and cleared the shelves for a 7-hour storm, right? Now, we can look at that consciously and be like, what the heck, that's crazy, it doesn't make sense. But I went, this is just another reference point of World War I and II in Scotland especially, that we haven't generationally collectively cleared the energy around rations, of having kids having to be in bunkers and bombs going off. And that's just one example, but it was so clear to me another time of this is why this happens, because the residue carries on in a different form until we actually transmute it. We can't ever delete it, but we can transmute it and change its form. And so I think that's why we're being forced to kind of think about things not so woo-woo anymore and go, well, maybe people are onto something here. Maybe they're not just crazy. Maybe this is actually how the world has always been. Maybe this is how it's created, and this is what we have to focus on.
Hey there, I just wanted to take a quick moment to share with all of you spiritual rebels and fempreneurs. If you've been craving a space where you can build wealth, heal trauma, and rise alongside like-minded women, I got something for you to hear about. I'm excited to invite you into the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood. This is a low-cost, high-impact group membership designed exclusively for spiritual fempreneurs who know they need accountability and support to create sustainable wealth, but aren't ready to dive into a one-on-one mentorship. In this membership, you'll get monthly calls, rituals, healing sessions, and workshops to break through your self-doubt and build confidence so that you can consistently sell your offers and make money. This is also a collaborative private Facebook community where you make lifelong connections with other women who are just as serious as hitting their goals. And my personal guidance as your intuitive human design business guide and trauma healer, ensuring you stay aligned and on track with your business goals. Plus, you'll get free access to all my paid workshops and masterclasses, along with exclusive VIP pricing for my one-on-one Voxer membership. This membership is all about helping you heal the sabotaging behaviors blocking your abundance and using your human design to create a business that feels amazing to run. Imagine waking up excited to serve your clients and knowing that you have the exact support you need to hit every single one of your business goals every single month. So if you're ready to rise and build wealth with a sisterhood of spiritual misfits, make sure you click the registration link in the description box. Right now, the investment is just $88 a month, but the price will increase to $197 a month. Join today to unlock exclusive rates and get access to next month's kickoff call. Let's get back to today's episode, but remember, your next level is just one decision away. Join the sisterhood and let's rise together.
Yeah, no, definitely the same thing, you know, like the same thing happened in the United States too, like with the fires in California. And then just you know, everybody, it was either that fire, it's fire and ice. And that's literally what I remember. It's like the fires in California and then the ice storms, like, and like storms and snow here. And it was happening literally at the same time. And I was like, this is not I don't believe in coincidences, but this is very synchronistic to everything that is going on. And, you know, my family probably, my brother jokes with me, but I think he's actually starting to realize that my sister's never always, she is a conspiracy theorist, whatever you want to call me, but no, I just see it. Like it's not, there's proof now. And you can't hide it, you know? So it's like, that's not true anymore. But I mean, to each his own, you know, I don't change people's beliefs. It's just, it is what it is.
No, it is what it is. I think you become the embodiment of the experience. You can share your truth and leave it there. And, you know, because it is when you know something, when you know that you know that you know something without needing the logical evidence, it'll catch up in its own time. Whoever needs to hear it, to see it, it's not our job to force it upon anybody. And there's many different forms, right? There's many different perspectives. Open Ashna, undefined Ashna here.
Mine's I was gonna say, mine's defined as well. So it's like I know all this. I just know. Like So Now, before we wrap up, I do want you to talk a little bit about the subconscious programming. I feel like this has been, I feel like, starting to get huge in the, I think, spiritual development or the spiritual community. More people are like asking about subconscious. And I still, I believe there's been times that people have told me, or they believe that they think that the subconscious is part of the higher self. And I would love your perspective on that. I don't believe it is. I feel like the subconscious is behind it or like connected, you know, because it's not really in like an entity. So I would love you to kind of explain, you know, like what subconscious programming is and what like role it plays in spiritual development.
Sure. Well, you know, I'm an avid learner and I'm not an expert in this only experience, but I've been on that journey with the subconscious mind for a long time. It's funny, actually, when I first started doing energy healing, I called it subconscious healing or something like that. And it's coming back around, you know, the way that I look at it, you know, I've been having these conversations with myself recently also about even the spirit realm, mediumship, channeling guides and all these things of what if, you know, because really what it is the conscious mind. So let's just start here. The conscious mind is in the waking state, you running about all day while you're awake is 10% of 100% of consciousness, right? So we navigate our waking day with 10% awareness, and it's the 90% in the subconscious, which is actually running the show. So when you come in to the world, you do have, you know, a set of DNA. You know, you come in parts of your mom, parts of your dad, and down those lineages. And I've noticed that can also weave in different ways and ripple in different directions too. So it doesn't go straight to like dad and then to son, or, you know, sometimes it swaps and goes around. So we come in, you know, as the soul in the body, and we have kind of a clean slate, but we do have a set of things that we, in events that we will come to, that we have to work through in generational karma that's playing out. Okay, so that's the first part. But we come in pretty neutral generally. And then we become programmed in the first 7 years subconsciously. So it's in the background, but the subconscious is the access point for creation, right? So the conscious mind is what we would term as the masculine. So it's like the action taker, the forceful one, you know, the one that wants to provide and get things done, you know, and but it's only 10% of your consciousness. And we look at the conscious world as actually the shadow world. It's actually the past. Collectively and individually, we've created everything that we see based on a past version, past event, past way of thinking, but it's not where you actually change your reality and your perception, that's in the subconscious. So the subconscious is feminine, and I'm like, you know, I think like the subconscious is the programs, you know, so it's like we are the computer, we have the computer, and then we have a set of programs, and they're going in the background, and those get programmed in or imprinted in the first 7 years roughly, in our childhood, which is why education is such a huge programmer for most children, good or bad, take it or leave it. And then you have like the super conscious, which I believe is kind of the creator link, you know, so that goes above. So we have the conscious mind is like 3D, so the reality that we see, that we always want to overgive to and do more and fix, and you know, don't really get all the results. It takes a long time, it's hard, you know, it just takes a lot of effort to fix things in the outer world, but we act like the conscious mind is the 90%. So we push with 90%, but it's really only 10% available. And then the subconscious is all feminine, it's the inner, and that's what we would term as like the 5D. It's really the quantum field, the quantum programmer. And this is where it's an inward journey. It's connected to your feeling, to your emotional state, and your visual cortex, or however you would say that in the brain. So this is where you have to, with 90% of your attention, create like a video game, what you want to see, what you want to feel, what you want to be. And we're not doing it. We are not doing that. We are giving 90% to the waking state, conscious, fixing things, but actually you can't fix something that's already here. So that's the way I like to look at it. So it's about having to take time for yourself to get silent from the noise and start to really feel elevated emotions. Like, how would I want to, like, if you want to move to a new location, well, yes, you can do the physical things like, you know, okay, I'm going to look on Google or like, you know, the home things, and we're going to look it up. We can put the house up for sale. We know what we want to sell it for. And then it doesn't sell, right? Because you haven't had the emotion and the belief behind it to actually create it the way you want to. So when you start to go into your visual process and see it already done before you take any aligned action, it will sell. So I think we've been programmed this way in purpose, and that's a whole other conversation. But to disempower, to disempower us, because you know the people that have ruled this dimension for a long, long time, or energies that have, they've known this, they've known the power of every human being, and only a small percentage of the 1% has actually known the rules of the game. And so we all have the ability to change it. And because when more people come into this awareness, you can't have power over them because they're creating their own reality and they're changing things. And it just basically is like we come in thinking that we have a fixed identity, you know, like I came from poverty, my parents, my grandparents, my cousins, always poor. So that's my identity. I'm always going to be here. It's always, it's just, that's the hand I've been dealt, but it's not true, because your identity is malleable. You can change it, but we've got it all round the wrong way. And so I would even go as to say, it's a little bit far-fetched, but I would even go to say that the amount of years that I've been on that journey of many different modalities, probably like yourself, you know, you experience many things in your own journey and then teach things. And I actually now think, through all of that journey, being a typical manifesting generator that jumped through the hoops, that subconscious reprogramming is actually the fundamental, most important thing you can focus on, because it misses out time, right? So the fourth dimension would be almost like time. So 3D reality that we see, we don't like what we're seeing, we're trying to fix and change it, but we can't really, or it takes a long time. 4D is time, and then the fifth dimension is the subconscious, but it's also the quantum field of everything, and everything is already there. Like, you're not actually really even creating it. It's every possibility already exists, but we haven't focused on it. We haven't put our energy into it until it comes to be in the third dimension. And I just think it's so important, because you can bypass time when you do it the right way. Because we're also realizing that the whole programming of time and having a watch and, you know, hours in the day, time speeding up. And why is that? Because it's a program. It doesn't exist in other dimensions.
Right.
So you can bypass many things. You can change your health. You know, you can, yes, modalities are great, but then I start to sit back and think, okay, if somebody's doing ancestral healing for 6 months and a couple of things have changed, but then they kind of revert back into some kind of a, like they don't really get better. Short term they do and then they don't. It's because there's a subconscious identity attachment. So if you can actually start to go into that before anything else, you probably don't need the healing. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for explaining that, because like you said, I've always believed in subconscious reprogramming, because I believe like that's why it was really important for me to figure out what I needed to do, especially having Lily, because
Yes. Yep.
if I didn't, she would have been 7 and I would have been like, well, shit, what am I going to do now?
Yep.
So it was
Yep.
really early on, when she was a 1.5, I started to be like, how do I master this thing? And then it was like, subconscious reprogramming, because I even noticed with myself that I will do healing, or I will do this and I will do that, the shamanic journey, go in, change contracts, go in and do this, do ancestral stuff. But the thing that blocks me, if it's emotional or a money block, because usually that's the only two real blocks. So we have, like, when we get, to each level,
Yep.
it's something different. But, it's like a fear of something like that I realize it's because simply of my subconscious programming. Like, if I
Yep.
change that, then I
Yep.
actually can, because I look back on my beliefs on what I had last year, or my beliefs that I had 2 years ago, and it's much bit different than I had now.
Different. Yeah.
So I'd wholeheartedly believe that, literally.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I'm like so big on the law of assumption. It's not just
Yep.
assuming that you're going to have it or manifesting what you're going to
Mhm.
have it. It's just like all these gurus of manifestation, they're teaching it wrong,
Yeah.
because you can't just say that you're going to have this money's coming to me, all these affirmations, because that
Yeah.
is not true, because the
And
person's
it's,
belief does
yeah.
not believe that. So
Yeah.
I did it for myself, and it's like, that's why I
Yeah.
feel like I need to record that happening. And that's why I'm asking, especially when, I was like, oh, I'm going to ask Kerry this question, because it is, I know it's a big part of what you do,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
even
And I think as well, another thing just from what you've said there is the reason why and people falter and they don't stick with it until it happens. One, because we've been programmed the opposite, but also
right,
we don't have reference points for safety in the body to hold energy, to hold our imagination. We get to school and our imagination is drilled out of us, if we're not in the 1%. Whereas the 1% children in the world that know all the rules, they're teaching their kids before they're 7 years old how to be winners, how to be mega manifestors, how to do all the things. And they do. And it's not that we could say elitism and, whole other story itself, but the only difference is for the majority of them is that they have been taught the rules of the game of this reality and we have not purposefully. But now having the awareness and then being able to have the knowledge to start and be able to sit with yourself and safety is a huge part of that. You have to, it's like you hear people all the time, oh, I generated massive wealth once I was safe in my body to hold the money, right? And it's just about feeling neutral, feeling safe in your body. And a lot of people don't have reference points for safety at all in their life, but there's maybe been moments somewhere that there's been safety. It could even be a stranger that just sat and talked to you for 30 minutes and it was the first point in your life you felt safe. You now have a reference points for what safety feels like for a minute, for a second, for a day. And
right.
that's the feeling that you have to keep leaning into with your imagination. And that's it until it happens, you know?
Yeah, I do. Like, yeah, that's actually a very good point too about safety, because here, everybody wants money, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
money's great to have, but
Yeah.
it's just energy.
Yeah.
So could you imagine what $1 million feels like? Could you imagine if being a millionaire, do you think that that's going to feel safe to somebody that's never held that energy? Oh
No.
my gosh, you're you're gonna be like, get this away from me. I don't want that, like, it's like I always I was on a podcast, I guess, a couple weeks ago, and the one thing that she said is that, be careful for what you wish for. And I'm telling you, I've heard
It's
that
true.
probably from spirit so
It's
many
true.
times, because I wished for something, and it's like, I wished for money. I didn't get
Yep.
money. I got a lot of it. I got
Mm,
a lot of lessons on how to budget and control my money.
yep.
And I'm like, same thing with patience. I asked for patience. I did not get patience. I got the complete opposite. I got a child, 5-year-old. No, I'm kidding.
Well, the funny thing is, and I say this about like human design too, like, because we're moving into that time where freedom is the ultimate manifestation, freedom of the spirit, freedom of the body, abundance, right? But we all, to an extent, will talk about, wish I had more freedom, right? And just not having to think about things. You can do what you want when you want, right? That's freedom to me, being able to move, to do whatever, to create. But when we set the intention of like, I would love some more freedom in my life, or I would love some more money in my life, in order to experience the freedom, you have to experience everything that is the opposite to be able to hold that freedom. And that's one of the lessons that has humbled me so many times, just like what you've shared as well, that like the opposite of freedom is victimization in the shadow. And so, nobody wants to actually acknowledge that we all, to some extent, have been victims in our life, because we've been programmed, right? And we've allowed the programming until we take our power back. So yes, be careful what you wish for. I agree with you. I have also experienced that, but people don't realize when they're asking for things how important intention is. But are you prepared to learn whatever you haven't learned yet around holding wealth, or having that intimate, strong, supportive relationship, right? Because you're going to get the opposite in all kinds of ways until you've really learned that side of it, and you can hold safety with someone new,
Yes. So before we wrap up, is there one last kind of nugget? I know you gave us so much nugget of wisdom here, so thank you for that. But is there just like one last thought that you can tell the listeners before we end?
I guess the what I would leave your audience with is to remember that your focus is your currency in this life, not money, not other things. What you give your attention to will determine what you experience the most. So being able to take your power back through awareness is probably the most important thing you can do to empower yourself to change. So yeah.
I love that. So thank you for joining us on today's episode with Kerry on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with somebody that you feel that would gain knowledge from listening. Stay tuned for more captivating conversations in the future. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on another enlightening episode on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you are a current or inspiring to be fempreneur, suffering from the fear of being seen and or feel very triggered when you're building your business, reach out to me at the Mermaid Light about my Rich and Resilient Biz Baddies. This is a collective text message Voxer support group designed to help you heal your triggers and turn imposter syndrome into bad bitch energy. If you resonate with our conversations and insight, don't forget to subscribe, rate the show, and leave a review. Your feedback fuels our mission. Remember, your journey to unwavering certainty and purpose is ongoing. So please make sure you stay connected with us on social media. Keep manifesting greatness in your life. Until next time, this is Lauren from the Enlightened Misfits podcast. Stay enlightened, stay inspired, and keep manifesting your extraordinary path.